Freedom Fighter Radio coming to you live from the heart of the Great White North, the heart of the true North, strong and free. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. Folks, come on in. We have special guests tonight from Calgary, the FireFighters4Truth from the beautiful City of Calgary, the beautiful province of Alberta. It's 5:34 p.m. Eastern Standard. It's 3:44 p.m. in Alberta. I need you guys, folks, to help with the shadow ban by sharing. And also, since we are not, our 100,000 followers are not always notified on social media, I'd like to invite everybody to also share our links on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, and many other free speech platform. Be patient with me. I will take off that frame so that you know that I'm really here. It's not just my voice. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again. It's going to be a great day for another Freedom Fighter Radio with our special guest, FireFighters4Truth. We had them on last year, and we are going to have him back on to get some updates, what's going on in Calgary. And remember, in 2 months, there's going to be a big provincial election in the beautiful province of Alberta. So keep that in mind. And one of the highlights of tonight's episode, which I will be asking the boys, the men of the FireFighters4Truth, is the wokeness that is being infiltrated in every sector of our society. We know and we've heard from our friends from Veterans for Freedom, Police on Guard for D, and I still have to try and get somebody from Mounties for Freedom. But we also have frontline nurses and other lawyers for truth. Every sector of our society seems to be infiltrated by wokeness, by this internationalist agenda. We can call them the gender ideology, the CRT. All of these are being imposed upon every sector, especially the public sector. I think it is a tool, a weaponized tool to really deteriorate or destabilize our society. So these are some of the questions I need you to start bringing in on the question on the live comment section, folks. Been looking forward to have the men of FireFighters4Truth that we had last year. We're going to get an update and we'll see how they're fighting wokeness, CRT, and all of these internationalist agenda. I describe it associated to something akin to a stealth war. And we know that the Chinese, the CPP or the CCP, they are not all about the conventional war. They are all about what they call the 100-year war, or the war that never needs to fire one single shot. And we know that stealth war is culture war, religious war, war on our children, war on family. That is the kind of war that they have launched against the ordinary Jane and Joe Canadians, the ordinary Jane and Joe Americans of the world, all the freedom members of our world society. So without much further ado, let's get this show started. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. Our special guest for tonight is FireFighters4Truth. Let's get this show started right now.
Freedom Fighter Radio, what is up? Whoa!
Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right,
always. Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Show.
I'm on Freedom Fighter Radio on the Ordinary Joe Show. That's quite a mouthful.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Chris Sky. Listen to Freedom Fighter Radio. They're here today, back in the blue, and so am I.
Please consider supporting the OJTV production costs and be an insider member for only $3 a month. Go to patreon.com/OJTV Canada. Thank you for your continued support.
Canadians all across the country are sick and tired of the lies, the fear-mongering, and the hate speech they hear from the mainstream media. Download the free radio app, Freedom Fighter Radio. Click the link below, scan our QR code, join our mailing list, and get a free download of our Freedom Fighter Radio app only here on OJTV on The Ordinary Joe Show.
Just because it's a seller's market, it does not mean that it's not a good time for you, the buyer, to get into your dream home. The seller's market presents a unique opportunity not available during the buyer's market. Find out for yourself. Get the professional advice of an experienced, honest, Christian freedom-loving real estate professional. Call my friend, our sister in the fight for freedom, Madam Cheryl Severance of Century 21 at 905-646-2121, or check out her website at cheryl-severance-c21.ca.
Fund the truth. Fund the unacceptable fringe views of the Freedom Fighter radio broadcast. Go to patreon.com/OJTV Canada and also donate $3 per month and help us keep going and pushing back against the lies, the hate, and the fear-mongering of the legacy media. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada. Your $3 per month will help us set fire on the lies of the tyrants, the technocrats, and the internationalist social engineers. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada.
Did you hear about the children's cough syrup shelves? They are mostly empty in the drugstores. Are you concerned? Do you feel the need to stockpile? As the world heads towards uncertainty, with every nation meeting its own challenges, Larks Medical are staged and ready to respond. Go to larksmedical.com. Provide them with your name, phone number, and email, and Larks will respond at their earliest possible availability to find solutions and ensure ample supply for your needs. Or email them directly at info@larksmedical.com. That's info@larksmedical.com.
I'm Pastor Arthur from Calgary, the leader of the Independence Party of Alberta. You are listening to the Freedom Fighter Radio Worldwide podcast, only here on The Ordinary Joe Show. Immediately out! Immediately go out and don't come back!
It's Freedom Fighter Radio coming to you live from the heart of the Great White North, the heart of the true North, strong and free. We are simulcasting on Rumble, Odyssey. We are also going to be available on BitChute, on Brighteon, and on Gab TV. Please come and subscribe to our free speech platform as Truth Social, on Gab, on Parler, and on Getter. Without much further ado, let's introduce our guest, Mr. Steven the Bag and Mr. Mike Andrisco of FireFighters4Truth. Hello, gentlemen. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Joe. How are you?
Good.
We don't have Steve. What happened to your camera? You're fully black.
I can see you. You guys can't see me?
We can't see you. Can you see him, Mike?
Okay.
No, I can't see you.
All right.
Okay. Oh. I'll try to figure that out.
All right. Let's get started with a little bit of a... We'll start with Mike because your camera is on. Mike, how did you get... Let's do a little review from last year. First of all, how did you get involved with FireFighters4Truth? But also slide into how did the background reason why FireFighters4Truth was formed, and then when I get to Steve, he'll give us sort of like synopsis since the last time I talked to you. What were the updates? What happened since then? And Mike, I think or Steve, sorry, I'm gonna mute you, Steve, for a second because I think your mic is disconnected. and we can hear like a kitchen. So, Mike, how first of all, how you got involved, and then why was Firefighters for Truth were started anyways? What was the story behind the creation of the organization?
All right. Well, first of all, Joe, thanks for having us on. It's awesome to be back again with you. It was back in the fall of 2021 when all the mandate craziness started coming out. At first you're thinking you're alone. You're like, am I the only guy that's thinking this isn't right? And then, you slowly start to talk to other people. You slowly start to get involved with stuff, and you realize that, hey, there's a lot of people out there that think the same way you do. And more specifically, when we were working for the Calgary Fire Department, as things progressed, we kind of formed it wasn't Firefighters for Truth yet, but it was probably about 180 employees at the fire department that were against these mandates, didn't want them. And then from there, it kind of dwindled down to kind of this core firefighters group, like-minded guys. We all thought the same. We were all against the mandates, and that's where Firefighters for Truth started. And then we formed the Firefighters for Truth, and then we started to take the legal action, started going the labor board route, the human rights route, and got involved with the lawyer, and just kind of went from there.
And so okay, I hear how the Firefighters for Truth got involved, but got created. But you personally, you got involved because of a specific case for yourself. What was it again?
Yeah, we were working for the Calgary Fire Department, and when the mandates came out, I guess a little bit of story. When the mandates came out, at the time we were told, hey, by our union, guys, they can't make you do this. It's not in the contract. It's not in the bargaining agreement. They cannot force you guys to do this. And we were all, okay, that sounds good. And then suddenly, there's about 10, 12 different unions that work for the City of Calgary. There was some behind closed doors meetings with the unions and the city. And suddenly everything changed. It went from, hey, they can't make you do this, to, sorry, guys, nothing we can really do. Our hands are tied. You got to do this. But we did fight for you, and we made it so that you can test if you want to keep your job. But I think for myself, at that point, obviously I wasn't going to take the jab. And testing, to me, that was not right as well. That's everybody knew at that time that the testing was a lot of false positives. It wasn't that great to begin with. Health-wise, it wasn't good for you. And second of all, there was no difference between vaccinated and unvaccinated when it came to getting and spreading things. So that wasn't an option either. I thought they were both not right. And that's what made me join up with these other guys and get involved with the Firefighters for Truth.
All right. So I want to bring Steve in, but Steve is still black out. Let me unmute him. Steve, when we get back to Mike, if you can maybe come in and out of the show again, that might solve the problem. Because
sure.
I can also hear that your mic kind of got dislodged. We can hear the background instead of you. But we'll get you on with just the black screen for now. But
sure.
Steve, give us an update since the last time we have had you on here on the Freedom Fighter Radio. What happened since, and what is the status right now of Firefighters for Truth, and then slide into how you got involved yourself.
Yeah, you bet, Joe. Thanks again for having us on.
Thank you.
Yeah, the big thing was, so what's going on now? We filed statement of claim against the City of Calgary as well as the province of Alberta for the illegal mandate that was put against us. There was a handful of our group that were put on indefinite, it started 30-day unpaid leave because we wouldn't go along with the vaccination mandates. From there, it ended up going to 60 days, 90 days, and then it seemed indefinite at the time, like everything wasn't going to change. And probably, to be honest, Joe, I don't think it would have changed had it not been for the Canadian truckers convoy. I think that a lot of people say, oh, what did the truckers do, this and that. But I can honestly tell you, I think without a doubt, had those guys not stood up, everybody would be having to take the third jab in order to keep their jobs or even
Let me
just be
interrupt a little
functional in
bit.
society.
Let me interrupt a little bit and ask you, because I can't remember when I had you on the last time. Was the trucker convoy happen already, or was it before the trucker convoy when I had you?
I believe it was, I think around in June of 2022 is when
Okay,
we would
so
have
it
been on, I believe. So it would have been after the truckers convoy.
okay.
But very grateful to those guys for standing up the way they did. I wish more Canadians would do the same. I really believe from the beginning of this, if everyone would have stood up, it would have been over. Even if there had been a larger group of firefighters who showed up at our silent protest in September of 2021, I think it would have been over that day. Yeah, I know we're not going along with it. We're emergency services. The city needs us to function. The citizens of Calgary need us to function. This is wrong what you're doing. And if we would have stood in solidarity, it would have been over.
So, folks, the voice that you're hearing is Stephen the Bag, one of the co-founders of Firefighters for Truth. Is it Firefighters for Truth or for Freedom? It's for Truth, right?
That's right. Firefighters for Truth, Joe.
For Truth. Okay. So there's a lot of groups now that uses the number four, for truth, for freedom. So, Steve, we're going to get back to you. I'm going to talk to Mike for now. And then if you can maybe turn your device off and on and then come in and out, I think that will fix the problem, because right now we cannot see you. It's just a total blackout. So let me bring back Mike for now. So, Mike, this is originally a Calgary Firefighters movement, a protest against the city government. Do you have any plans of, or do you already maybe had integrated other fire chiefs or fire departments from other cities to extend it to Alberta wide or province wide, and maybe hopefully make it nationwide firefighters dissenting organization?
As of right now, it's still just the Calgary Firefighters. I know we have talked with other firefighter groups, but just for as far as the legal end of it, we've kept it just with the Calgary Firefighters. I know kind of the way things, and Steve will probably, once he comes back on, I know he's going to want to, he'll get you caught up on all the legal stuff, but I know we're looking at probably going a different route and maybe opening up to the province with a class action lawsuit, which is different than what we're doing right now. So that we are looking at that option to go that road, but that would open it up to the whole province and basically anybody that wants to get on this can.
I don't know if you remember the last time I had you on, I was trying for getting one of the fire chiefs here in Ontario in the riding of Haldimand, Norfolk. He just happened to, I think he got back to on the job when I was trying to have him participate in this conversation we were having. But the problem is not just Calgary. And having said that, I know that it seems to us that the advances of woke culture, of CRT, and also the mandates of responding to any pandemic or epidemic is always internationalist kind of agenda. And even we know that the World Health Organization have tried, and Leslie Lewis, one of the MPs, which is also the MP of Haldimand, Norfolk, the same riding where the fire chief that I'm trying to get here to participate in this conversation. She was the one who opened that conversation, how the World Health Organization is trying hard to have nation states cancel their own pandemic response in future pandemics and have the World Health Organization come in with no interference from our local governments or even our federal governments. So I feel like everything else, the CRT, the gender dysphoria, the pandemic responses, these are coming from internationalist effort to hijack our response. However, me and many of those that I guested here in the past, I think we all agree that the uh, the agenda is internationalist, but the response should be local. So I understand that we can only fight, and we can be most effective in local pushback against this internationalist agenda. But we know that this is like it's blanket all over Canada, all over Calgary, all over Alberta, in all of the provinces. So yeah, I would like to see that you would have some sort of an open discussion with other fire chiefs in other cities, in other provinces, because there might be something there that you can collaborate with. But yes, the only way we can win this is local. How is the fight right now, locally for you?
Well, locally, when Premier Smith got in here in Alberta, there was a lot of hope. I think that she was going to do something different, and I know there's still people out there that are hoping that she will. I think, and Steve might have something to say about this, but I don't have any hope anymore, Joe. I think career politicians, people that have been in this their whole lives and stuff, I'm done. I think the Liberals, Conservatives, NDPs,
They're all the same.
I think they're all the same. They're all taking us down the same road. I think just some a little bit faster than others. I think they all have the same agenda. I think you were talking about the UN. I know the WF is involved with the UN now. I mean, everybody knew they were kind of working together, but I think they've officially partnered up a couple of years ago and made it official. And so all this stuff is coming down through the UN, the WF. They're all working together, and I think every main the main three groups that we have in this country and in this province and country is we're all going down the same road with all three of them. So I think what it's going to take is people that aren't career politicians, because in Ontario you got guys like Derek Sloan, you got Randy Hilliard. I don't know if Randy retired yet. I know he was gonna, but
I think so. He retired, but you guys have the
Yeah.
Independence Party of Alberta
Yes, and
now
we got
led by Pastor Arthur, right?
yeah, and now Art's running, and I mean, as a side note, I've actually I've joined up with Art. I'm running as an MLA in Calgary here under the Independence Party.
Awesome.
But I think
What's the riding? Name the
Oh, it's,
riding, because we have Calgarians listening in.
Calgary Glenmore.
Calgary Glenmore.
Yeah.
There you go, folks.
Yeah. But I think what it's going to take is ordinary, everyday people standing up and running and doing these things. And I think there's a silent majority out there that needs to start standing up and just letting their voice be heard. Because until that happens, politicians aren't going to listen.
I just want to mention that I like that you have both the Canadian and the American flag. Although we need to fight locally, the war is actually all across the board. You know, they don't they don't discriminate between Americans, Canadians. They all just want to push us down to subservient society. So, Steve, the same question. I know that the most effective way to fight this is through local fights, but we are aware that it is an internationalist agenda. How do you balance between, acknowledging that the agenda is coming top down from international forces while fighting it locally?
Yeah, I was listening to a talk Jordan Peterson was the Joe Rogan podcast, and he kind of mentioned the principle of subsidiarity, and it's kind of like breaking it down into the simplest form, like dealing with a situation in your community at the lowest level of government. I think definitely that's kind of where we need to go. And I think both what me and Mike are both trying to do in our own way, just by getting involved, first of all, with our firefighters, and then trying to affect change in our communities, in our cities, and in our province, right? And yeah, like I never used to be a political person. I used to never have much hope in politicians, kind of, a lot of the corruption and things that you see on the surface. But when it starts to affect your life, like we've been given so much freedom in Canada for so long, and then having it taken away, I think it really woke a lot of people up to the fact that, hold on here, we need to be paying attention to what's going on. Even if it doesn't look so good, even if it's ugly, is there ways we can get involved and actually influence this? And of course, now we've seen I would say things that seem scandalous and undemocratic. I guess the Trump-Biden election probably being the best example of that. But also seeing right across Alberta last fall of very strange election going on across all the municipalities, where a lot of leftist mayoral leaders, as well as city council, were voted in right across the province. Yet there's a lot of right-wing conservatives senators voted in the same election. Statistically, a lot of things didn't make sense, and I actually ran for Ward 14 because of the mandates when they came out. So we kind of all had a firsthand account trying to get me elected in at that time.
And it doesn't make it seems to, you guys can hear me well, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it doesn't make any difference whether we have, more conservatives in the legislature, or more liberals. They all seem to be following the same script. So that's why that is also one of the hallmark that they are being puppeteered by internationalist force. We know that the entire agenda of like you mentioned, Steve, that Jordan Peterson is also fighting his war in the College of Psychiatry. There's wokeism in there too. We know that Veterans for Freedom, many of the veterans were forced to take the jab, or I mean, many active members of the military were forced to take the jab. I just had the Ops Sergeant Major of Veterans for Freedom about 2 episodes ago, and he was saying that there was also a great resignation within the military in Canada. We know that Anita Anand, the Minister of Defense, have allowed that new rule that military men can come in with their braided hair, or not braided, but colored hair, and grow their hair and come in with their panties if they want to. And she was talking about men military members. And so wokeism is really filtering down. I heard of Colonel Lohmeyer of the Air Force in the United States, who is also Trump's appointee to be the head of the Space Force. And he was also canceled because of being outspoken against wokeism. Let me ask you, how is the Firefighters for Truth is organized right now? So I know that there's 3 of you that are co-founders, 3 or 4, is it?
Yeah, there's a group of 17 of us who took the city of Calgary to court, and it was basically, I can't really remember who. We all kind of came up with the idea as a groups. So I guess you could say there's 17 co-founders.
17 co-founders, and I know that it's usually the 2 or the 3 of you who guest on shows. But is the Fire for Truth open for other firefighters to join if they want to join and learn more about your fight and maybe understand how to fight their own fights in their own departments?
Basically, we use it as kind of the name slogan to the website to kind of update information. We'll attach, like, this podcast will be posted on Firefighters for Truth website, FireFighters4Truth.com. And also ways people can help support us, because one of the biggest things that we're trying to do is the legal battle. Right now, we're fighting for jurisdiction in the courts, and it's not going great in Alberta. There's been 2 unfortunate jurisdictions with the city of Quesnel against their employees, as well as the ATCO employees against ATCO. Basically saying because they're unionized employees that the jurisdiction of these violations, these crimes committed against these employees, are within the workplace jurisdiction. So what happens there, Joe, is that it ends up creating case precedents, and other judges are afraid to challenge that, and eventually it will become case law unless people get behind us and help us challenge it and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And I think one thing I can say is the Trudeau and whoever's behind him did that really affected everything was really hurting the donations of these kinds of things, because it made people afraid to give once he started freezing people's bank accounts and whatnot. And I understand that it's scary, but the thing is, if we don't stand up, what's scarier? Eventually, they're going to take everything away from us anyway.
Yeah, I think that is the only thing that they were able to accomplish when they started freezing the account of dissidents in the trucker convoy, is to strike fear, the chilling effect that people are hesitant to give to movements that they believe in, because they think that the government will be going after their livelihoods, their savings. And we have heard already how that is what's the word, condemned by many, even politicians of other governments and other nations have condemned that atrocity that the government of Canada has done to the truckers. I don't think they'll do that again. And also, the banks are having a trouble of their own right now. I think they're collapsing the banks right now so that they can bring in the digital currency, the digital ID agenda, and the social credit score. But that's a totally different kind of fight. But that's why I thought I bring up that idea of, I remember that when we used to have a by-election, and we're going to have a by-election here in Toronto, and Chris Guy is actually running for mayor of our city. Well, I hope he wins. You know, a lot of members of the community and even myself have some reservation of his I guess his demeanor, but I rather have a Chris Kai than an internationalist puppet in our local governments. I rather have. And so, by the way, are you, Steve? Have you thrown your name into the hat as well for your riding for the Independence Alberta, or?
No, I've been working actually with the UCP, trying to select freedom-minded candidates for the nominations for the United Conservative Party, and I totally understand Mike's perspective. I guess for myself, the fear is a Notley NDP government sneaking into Alberta, and I'm not sure if the independence group is well established yet to make sure that they win substantially. Best case scenario is we see as many like-minded, sovereign, respecting, freedom-loving MLAs in our Alberta provincial election win between the independents and the UCP, so we can move forward and get somewhere.
You think of throwing your name into the hat for your riding as a UCP or whichever party?
I actually helped Miles McDougall win the nomination. I was door-to-door canvassing and phoning for him on his behalf. He's saying all the right things about freedom, about his disgust of the woke agenda in the school system. So I guess our groups have vetted him, and all we have to do is see if he can perform, or if he'll fold. I mean, that's kind of all you can do in the political system. You go with your gut and hope it's the right person. Unless it's yourself, how can you really trust them?
Mm-hmm. No, the reason I brought that up is I helped a candidate here in Ontario in a by-election, and although of course you have to be living in the riding to vote for that person, because he's the very first Filipino conservative to run for the Conservative Party. There are already two Filipinos on the Liberal side, and the very first Filipino conservative running for a certain district or riding. We cannot vote for him if we don't live in that area, but we help him campaign that even other Filipinos from other provinces can donate to his campaign. Remembering that kind of effort that we did about two summers ago, I'm imagining that many firefighters all across the country, even in the United States or all across the world, would probably connect with your fight and help campaign for you if there's some sort of like open communication and networking within the firefighters of not only in Alberta but Canada, US, and the world, right?
Yeah, when we served a statement of claim back in June of 2022, and we were on the Rebel Media as well as your show and a few others. We did connect with a lot of people through the website, people wanting to reach out, understand what we were doing, how we were doing it. also like seeking advice of how they can do the same thing in their area. And yeah, so we did connect with firefighters right across the country. The problem is that they also want to do the same thing there. We are getting some support from them. It's just we're talking about civil servants and not really wealthy corporate people, which is kind of who we need in this fight, because the costs are huge. The legal costs, lawyers are expensive, and good lawyers particularly, and they don't have the time or the money to do everything for free either. And right now there's such a crisis and a demand for that type of work. I can understand why they cost what they do. Unfortunately, the system isn't set up for justice for people like us, right? But if we come together and kind of work together on the key cases, and I believe ours is, if we can get people to support us, this group would take it all the way. The only problem is now we have Alberta, the province of Alberta law department asking us to cease and desist with our case, and then they won't.
Who is asking you to cease and desist?
That's the Alberta law department asking us to let their last offer was that they would not charge us their legal fees if we lose in court, type of thing. And it's intimidating because we're, half of us are out of work with families to feed and stuff. And we've done everything we can. It's mostly pretty much completely supported this on our own dime. So, yeah, what I've felt now is, I guess that's why I've gotten involved in trying to assist these freedom-minded MLAs and nominations and stuff, and trying to connect with them and get our message heard. I've also written a letter to the Premier explaining the situation, because I've been part of the Take Back Alberta movement from the beginning, trying to get Jason Kenney out and a new leader in. And so we were all part of supporting Daniel Smith rise to the Premier.
Let me ask you quickly: Are you still hopeful of Daniel Smith, or are you disappointed of her performance after she took on that seat?
I love the start of when she came out talking about how the unvaccinated people were in her lifetime the most discriminated against people.
But it feels like she didn't follow through with all her promises. Did
well,
she?
The next day she apologized, and that didn't leave me with a good taste in my mouth. I'd like to encourage her as much as I can to do what's right here, to continue on our initial plan, because it is people like us who put her in that seat. We are the grassroots of Take Back Alberta, and if we aren't supported by her, it makes it really hard for me to argue with people of the Independence Party.
That's right.
Of why they should try to work with the UCPs.
Well, Steve, we have the same problem here in Ontario. We were the one who put Doug Ford as our premier of our province to kick out the former Liberal premier, Kathleen Wynne, who was pushing all the sex education written by one of his minister, who is a convicted pedophile. He wrote he was the architect of the sex ed in Ontario. So we got her out, Premier Kathleen Wynne. That's why we installed Doug Ford, because we felt in the beginning he sounded like us. He sounded like a freedom fighter. He sounded like, I'm with the ordinary Jane and Joe Ontarians. We will fight for your right. And then when he finally a lot of these career politicians, they will say everything that everybody wants to hear when they're campaigning. But then when they were seated, a few months later, he pushed exactly the same sex ed curriculum that we voted Kathleen Wynne out for. And his government is pushing exactly the same sex ed in our schools. So I don't know if you can trust any of this, establishment politics type. So I think you should run, Steve, independent if you don't want to be associated with any party.
Steve, I agree with Joe. Steve, you should, Steve.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's some UCP people listen to this.
Well,
hopefully Daniel Smith listen to this.
Well, traditionally, we think that and we thought Jason Kenney was the darling of the conservatives for a long time, and all of a sudden he turned, and that's our problem with many of these establishment politicians. I'm forgetting what the follow up that I want to ask you, Mike and Steve. But okay, so here, what would be? I think what you need is more visibility, and because I've heard your story, and a few people have heard your story, but people have short memories, and people seems to remember what they see all the time, and and what I see that the Veterans for Freedom are doing. They have their own podcast so they can keep being visible, and everybody knows what they're standing for. Even if their podcast is not talking about their case or not talking about specifically what they're doing, it's always talking about freedom messages, but they're always visible. And I think you guys, other than guesting in podcasts, how do you make yourself visible to Alberta?
Well, I guess that's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons I'm running for MLA as well, just to keep pushing this forward, and everything else you talked about, Joe. Like the wokeness that's going on in this province and in this country is insane. I think, I mean, from my point of view, what made this country great and this province great is the ethics and the principles and the values that we held dear in this country, and they've been under attack for the last. It's been slowly eroding, but it seems like it's just accelerated the last 3 or 4 years. And whether you agree with me or not, I think all those principles and values were biblically based.
Yes,
and
I agree.
And until we get back to those, I don't think we can have true freedom until we get back to those values and principles. And I think it's going to take guys like me and Steve and anybody else that still holds those values true to their heart to get involved in this. And you're right, we do got to stay in the media. We got to stay in people's faces, so to speak, to let them know that we're still fighting this and what's going on. So it's definitely an uphill battle. It's hard to get. You can't get a fair shake with any mainstream media. And we're thankful to you and everybody else that has us on. But you're right, we got to keep pushing and keep in people's faces and keep letting them know what's going on.
Well, if you guys need assistance with creating your own podcast, I will volunteer my time, because we need to know more what you guys are doing and what is your message and what is your fight, because there are many freedom fighters all across, not only in Alberta, in Ontario, in Canada, all across the world, who, if they know more about your fight, they will have more opportunity to make a decision to support you. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back after less than a minute.
A disturbing news. Doctors administer certain drugs even after the family have rejected it. Why? Because hospitals can charge $3,000 a pop for it. Meanwhile, they hid the fact that cheaper alternatives are available and it only costs cents. Do you know if you are paying the right price for your current prescription? Have you researched if there are cheaper yet equally effective alternatives? Call Shinlaza Pharmaceuticals at 1-800-206-0051 or email at info@shinlaza.com for a free consultation. Shinlaza Pharmaceuticals is owned and operated by a freedom fighter of the Freedom Community in Ontario. Imagine that the power grid was totally wiped by an EMP weapon of an enemy state. Your stress level will go to the roof, your patience will be tried, you will have to think about both your own and your complaining children's survival. If you don't survive, your children won't when they are left on their own. Teach your children how to have the mentality of being survivors through a fun, children-friendly guided outdoor adventures with basic survivor mindfulness integrated in the fun outing activity. Call my friends Ornell and Victoria, who are experienced survivors. Call them at 905-252-8009 or email them at northernpacificcottages@gmail.com.
Freedom Fighter Radio. I'm coming to you live from the heart of the Great White North, the heart of the true North, strong and free. And the original true North, strong and free, is the province of Alberta. We just like to kind of claim that for all of Canada. But our special guest today is Mr. Mike Andrews and Steve the Bag of Firefighters for Truth. Do I pronounce your last name there, Steve, properly, or am I butchering?
I go by Steve DeBaugh.
DeBaugh? Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right.
That's okay. No worries.
Silent G.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the show, folks. So we are talking about how wokeism and CRT and even the pandemic responses are being the bid of the few elites in the international sphere wants to push their agenda down on ordinary people. Um, so, what else do you guys want to talk about? What else do people need to know about your fight?
Well, I think the key root of it is the reason why we're doing this because we saw what's happened when we sit on the sidelines and don't do enough. You end up getting locked in your house with a lot of your civil liberties taken away. Um, you lose your job if you're not willing to give up your sovereign rights to protect your body and have informed consent of what goes in it. Crimes are allowed to be committed. We talked about forced testing. That's actually a form of criminal assault that we haven't mentioned on this show yet before, I don't think. It's SO2 of the Criminal Code of Canada. You can't do that to anybody. Cops know about it, but it's just not being allowed to be heard now in the courts. What's happening is a lot of lawyers, a lot of judges are doing everything they can to prevent cases like this from being heard before the judges. The reason being, it's so black and white and so blatant, a violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Bill of Rights, and the Criminal Code of Canada, that any judge would have to, without a doubt, unequivocally side on our side of things, right, to uphold these rights. The way they're preventing it is they're making it cost a fortune to get there. Right.
Yeah.
They're making it cost literally a fortune to get there by filing jurisdiction claims that this is a workplace issue with anybody that's part of a collective bargaining agreement or a union. Now, this brings us to another whole viewpoint from a union's perspective. Of course, they went along with it for whatever reason, only God knows. Now, that being said, looking at it after this has occurred and these jurisdiction cases are going on, it's not going to take people long to figure out that it's not a good thing to be a part of a collective bargaining agreement in Canada anymore, right? So why would anyone ever want to work for a union again? And all it takes is people to go down, like in Calgary, for the City of Calgary employees, all we have to do is go down to the City of Calgary and divest from our unions, right? And we're no longer part of that collective bargaining agreement. You have the benefits of it. So that's another thing people can do is to fight back against this stuff. And maybe the International Association of Firefighters would figure this out, fly on a plane and back cases like ours, because if we don't win, they're doomed.
Well, something that Mike was mentioning earlier, and I've been thinking about this a lot, brothers in the fight, because it seems like the internationalists have kind of hijacked most of the structure. And we know that many cases, and I had an opportunity to have one of the lawyers for truth, lawyer for even for Pastor, the church that got fence off, Pastor James Coates.
James Coates, yep.
Yeah. So what's his name again? I forgot his name, but he's really his original practice is human rights law. Is going to come to me. What's his name? He's a staple at Rebel News as well. But he was mentioning to me one time that it seems like a lot of these judges, they entered into what they call judicial activism, where they listen, they hear, and they come up with a conclusion that seems to have as if they didn't hear the case, as if the charter didn't exist. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms are out the window. And you guys probably know full well what happened with the public inquiry on the Emergency Act. We heard all of the testimonies. We heard even the government side. The RCMP and many of the police says there's no call for an emergency, but in the end, the Justice Rulo still came with a decision that has nothing to do with everything that we heard on the inquiry. It's all about how he wants to protect Junior Castro, his to stay in power. So I think we are in a stealth war. Like, Mike was a little frustrated there in the beginning when he opens. He says, I give up. I don't believe in this and that, and I think honestly, I was talking to Jeff Evely, who is one of the co-founders of Veterans for Freedom, and he is also like, if the and one of the other Veterans for Freedom was telling me every person has his own red line. How much atrocity and spit to the face of freedom and charter and bill of rights can the government do before people rise up? And he was saying for many veterans, it's like taking away the guns. Taking away the guns would be their red line. And for some, maybe ordinary Jane and Joe, dad and mom and uncle, taking away our food, or creating that food crisis would be the red line. But why do we have to wait for that? Because we have to understand in Canada that the right to defend yourself is a basic human right. So taking away your ability to defend yourself is really a assault to our human rights. But what do you guys think? Yes, we have to go through the system, the process. We have to be peaceful. But other than that, is there any other creative way? Can you think about how we push back against the assault on our rights and our freedoms in this country? Mike?
You know what? I know I kind of touched on it already a little bit, and I know Steve did too. But you gotta doing what you're doing, Joe, and we just gotta get the word out there. I know we gotta go through the courts, and you know what? And speaking of judges, and a little side note, but the Independence Party, no more appointed judges. These judges are appointed by the politicians. We need to have judges that are voted on. But judges should be voted and not appointed. And even when it comes to, and I'm talking about Alberta here now, but the RCMP, they're so corrupt. We don't want the RCMP in this province no more. We need provincial police and sheriffs that are voted in, not appointed. All these things. These are things that need to be done in this province to get things going back on the right track.
I remember Pastor Art was talking about that on my show. He was saying that judges should be elected, and sheriffs. There should be sheriffs that are elected by the people, and there's something to that. But if you start reforming many of these systems in our current status quo, and if some of these corrupt systems starts falling one at a time, this might even lead us to a Republican movement in our in our provinces. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mark Friesen from Saskatchewan. He read a document that was co-written by a professor Salim and another person. But eventually he found out he's not allowed to read that document out in public yet, but he might start a new something similar to it, which is a sort of proposal to a reformation of our constitution, because he feels, and a lot of, I guess, academics feel, that when the charter was given, the charter was drafted in 82. The senior Trudeau went to the UK and he got it ratified by the Queen, and then he came back as a representative of a crown. So the now the understanding is the crown gave us our rights, but we know in American structure it's God. We are born with this inalienable rights. No government can take it away from us. But the way it is right now in our country is that it seems like the royalty or the queen or the king has given us our rights, and they have the right to take it out. What do you guys think about that? Should we continue with this path, or should we demand or maybe have a referendum to make sure that our rights are inalienable, God-given? We were born with it.
Well, sorry, Steve, I don't know if you're understanding, but that is definitely one of the things I agree with you on. That is a referendum. I mean, even I know, going back to political parties here, but we're called the Independence Party, but that doesn't mean. I mean, we just want a strong, independent Alberta. We're not a separatist party. We're an independent party. We want to, and one of the things that we're talking about all the time is a referendum. Let's vote on these things. Let's have the people vote on what's important to them. Not having some politician decide what's important to us, but having the people vote on this in referendums. And And I know Mark's. I met him here last weekend. He's an awesome guy. He's great to listen to. He's very good listening to. I learned a lot. But yeah, and I think he's doing the same thing in Saskatchewan. Like you said, he started up his own party. He's running. It's kind of like an independence
I think
party
it's
in
called
Saskatchewan.
Buffalo Party is who
Yes.
he's working with right now.
Yeah,
It seems to be an independent party as well, right?
Yeah. So same thing. I think, but referendum definitely. It's let's let the people have their voice back.
What are your thoughts about that, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all created to live free, and I think that's kind of part of the Judeo-Christian values that were behind the thoughts of our freedoms in this country, of the laws and institutions that kind of protect that idea. And if people don't stand up and fight for these things, then I mean, what happens is you become enslaved, right? I don't know if anybody thinks living in China these days is a good idea, or North Korea, or even Islamic Saudi Arabia, where you don't have choices to live. You don't a certain way. You don't have a choice of what you believe in, right? So these are the things that people need to consider. And maybe the reality of it is not enough people value that freedom anymore. I don't think we need the majority of numbers. I think we just need a strong minority. From my understanding, in World War II, it was like 7% of the population that went over and fought, right? And the Canadian forces made huge gains in both World War II and World War One. That being said, do we have enough people that are willing to give it all for this? And I think we do still. I really do believe we do.
Sounds like somebody wants to enter your doors there, Steve.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've been running around the house trying to find a quiet place.
No worries. They might kick you out, but you can bring us along with you on your phone. But to your point,
Joe, sorry. I was just going to go along with what Steve there, just to add something.
Go for it, Mike.
I was just reading an article the other day. It said that like new immigrants coming into Canada, there's hardly the percentage of people actually taking out Canadian citizenship is like ridiculously low.
Yeah.
No, and their answer to that is to make it easier and not have swearing in ceremonies anymore. Just go online and click a few boxes and you're a citizen. And that's their answer to this. But I mean, back like Steve was talking, like World War I, like in the 1900s, like when everybody was coming here. Yeah. Coming to Canada, like that was like you were coming to the greatest country ever. And when you came here, you wanted to become Canadian, and that's what made Canada great. That we had a strong identity as being free and morals and values and ethics that everyone wanted to come to. I mean, now you come to Canada and there's incentives to come here now. That's why people are coming, not because it's like nobody even wants to become a Canadian citizen anymore.
So well, to your point, Mike, I migrated to Canada in '93 myself, yeah. and I speak to a lot of immigrants. I think because Filipino immigrants seems to be asleep, but I speak to a lot of other immigrants from war torn or like Polish from Polish people and Romanian who grew up from behind the iron curtains. I feel like I'm most angry as an immigrant Canadian to why are they changing? This is the goalpost. We came here because of freedom, and then they're moving the freedom away from this country that we came and sold all of our properties and gave up on our roots from the country we left, our home country where we were born. We come here because we believe in the freedoms of Canada, but Justin Trudeau is taking away that goalpost that most immigrants came here for.
Yeah.
So we are most angered by the Trudeau's allowing Marxism or internationalist Marxism. The accurate term is actually technocracy. We won't have time to discuss that today, but it is technocracy rising worldwide that is causing all of our the assault on our freedoms. But to the point of Steve, he said 7% during the Second World War. During the American Civil War, it was 3% of Americans who fought during the Civil War, and they won with 3%. But we need to, and the Denmark professor who talked about mass formation. What's his name again? I forgot. He said that it's about 30% of people who are brainwashed by the government. 30% are dissenters. There's like a 40% in between who do want to be outspoken. But if the 30% who are dissenters against tyranny starts quieting down, what's his name again? He said that that's when the killing starts. The killing starts when the 30% of those who pushing back against heavy mandates quiet down or not speak up anymore. That's when the killing starts. So, man, it's never been a better time to be alive because we're in a crossroad here. It could be full tyranny, but it could be also be a full renaissance of freedom. And to Jeff Evely, the one of the co-founders of Veterans for Freedom, he believed in the fourth turning theory, where we are in the fourth turning. This is the most problematic generation, but the generation after this will bring the renaissance. But I'm a little impatient. I don't want to wait for the next generation. I want us to win our fights. Steve, anything else that the listeners need to know? How can they participate in your fight?
Well, I guess just thinking about what's going on here in the city of Calgary now. We have this unelected mayor, Gondik, and I say that because of I was explaining to you about what I believe to be voter fraud was a lack of an opportunity for the election to be audited. It was the digital cards, very similar to the Trump Biden issue. If somebody truly supported democracy, they would still encourage election audit if anything suspicious was going on. So there is an opportunity here in Calgary that Daniel Smith's UCP's, they did some stuff here. We will have the opportunity to challenge our mayor. So I want to encourage everyone to start looking at that. We need to push for an audit. We need to challenge this unelected mayor's authority, because what's going on now is she seems to be using the Calgary Police Services as her own henchman, making up bylaws that totally disregard the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Bill of Rights, and the Criminal Code of Canada, where people can't peacefully protest anymore. We have drag queen shows at our public libraries, where a pastor was recently, well, the drag queen shows are directed towards children, right? To inviting children, where they're going to have story time with this drag queen act in public facilities. Yep. Of course. Theron Fleury was recently on his podcast and talks about how he was groomed as a child and then raped as a young man, and affected him deeply, and in some ways really, really hurt and destroyed his life. And so he talked about this, that these things, this is absolutely, if you're going to have a drag queen show, that's for consenting adults, right, and nobody else. And there's a sexual element there, and that's a violation of children's innocence, and should be criminal assaults and sexual assault against those children. So pastors have been protesting. People have been protesting, and recently we had one pastor go to prison because of it. The cops came to his home and he was arrested on the behest of Jody Gondik. So how is this going on in our beloved free Canada, our free Alberta? Like it blows my mind, right, that these things are happening, and how our case ties into that one. It is just a disregard of the Charter, of the Bill of Rights, and the Criminal Code that safeguard our freedoms in this land, right? And so people do have to pay attention to these things and get involved. Our safety depends on it. Our livelihoods depend on it. And I don't know what's going on with these police chiefs. I don't understand it. I can only imagine they must be put backed into a corner where they feel like they have to go along with it. It's sad for me that they don't have the courage to stand up, or maybe I don't know what's going on. It makes no sense.
There you go, folks. I think it is a purposeful assault to destabilize our society. Naturally, human nature, even growing up in the Philippines in the early 80s, we know that if a president of the Philippines show some sort of weakness, the generals take over and have a coup d'etat. We had a series of coup d'etats in the Philippines when they smell weakness from the leader. But our leader for almost 6 years now is not only weak, he is a metrosexual, weak, pathetic blackface son of Castro. But where are the generals? I'm not calling for coup d'etat, but the generals could actually put him on the spot and question his um, the direction that he's taking the country. I know that they have mandates that they cannot speak politically, but they can always speak for the principles of rights and freedom in this country. But where are they? It's either they are asleep or they're part of the cabal who are trying to deteriorate or destabilize our society so that they can bring in their great reset, their build back better, their social credit score. Don't go away, folks. We'll be right back after this very short message. We have a brand new podcast in collaboration with one of our very important collaborators. So without much further ado, I would like to introduce our main collaborator for a brand new podcast, Enemies of the State, a New World Order. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Doru Gordon.
Yes, and to put it simply, the recipe is always there. Create a crisis. You have to present there is a crisis in society. In order for the state to go bigger and to grow, you always have to threaten people or to instill fear. You have to be fearful of greedy capitalists or the greedy businessman who wants to take money away from you.
Hello, friends. I am Derek Sloan, the leader of the Ontario Party. You are listening to the Freedom Fighter Radio Canada podcast, only here on The Ordinary Joe Show.
Freedom Fighter Radio, our special guests tonight are the gentlemen of Firefighters for Truth, Mr. Mike Andresco and Steve DeBaugh. I'd like to invite all of our live audience. I know that a lot of you are on Rumble, on BitChute, on Odyssey, and you cannot interact with our dashboard here. But for those who are joining in on Facebook, please share, because very timely, Facebook didn't kind of disabled our cross post today for some reason. I've been doing it every break to launch the cross post, but it's not happening. But folks, if you don't want to miss out on the Freedom Fighter Radio show, you have to go and download our free Freedom Fighter Radio app at www.ojtv.ca. Again, that's www.ojtv.ca. It's totally free download. You sign up for basically joining our mailing list, and you get a link to the free download, and you will never miss a show. And all of our shows in recent weeks are all on a loop on broadcast. And so if you miss a show during the week, you can still catch up using our Freedom Fighter Radio app. And also, it's a full experience of a radio program on the app, because we also have some patriotic music that are playing on the app, unlike here on social media where copyright is not permitting that. So let's bring back Mr. Steve DeBaugh and Mr. Mike Andresco of Firefighters for Truth. So, folks, question about maleness and male power and being, it seems like it's now demonized and vilified if you are an alpha male or if you are a head of the family, being a father, being a male, especially if you're Caucasian. This seems to have been the mortal sin of today's society, and most of our first responders, firefighters, police, military, right? Those who will protect us from actual terror attacks, or even if there's an alien invasion that is being touted now in many mainstream media, that whatever fear that they can create so that we will embrace our tyrants more. But in our neighborhoods, organically, in our communities, in our families, it is the alpha male. Some people don't like that word alpha male, but like even in the animal kingdom, it is always usually the male who protects the herd, or what's for the lion, it's called the I forgot what it's called among the lions, the herd. But why do you guys think that men are now, it's a sin to be a strong man, a man who fights for freedom, who protects the weak, the women, the children of our society? And most firefighters are the male figures that we can come to and run to for help, for protection. But that's a sin now, and that they want our men to be wearing lipstick and nail polishes in the military. What's happening? What do you guys think?
I think go ahead, Mike.
Okay, I'll make it quick, Steve. I think you kind of alluded to it there just before a break, Joe. I think it's the destabilization of society. They're going after the core family. They're going the traditional core family. They're going after what's the two main things you do to destabilize things? You go after the core family and you go after religion, and that's what they're doing. And toxic masculinity, I guess they're throwing in there too. But they're just trying to destabilize everything. They're going after all that stuff that keeps a society together.
Back to you, Steve.
Yeah, I completely agree with Mike. I think kids look to their dads to look out for them and stuff, and we all look to strong male and female figures, but particular in certain roles, to have strong males. And just one thing that kind of made me think recently, in the last Calgary Fire Department recruitment, there was three recruitment groups. One was for females. One was targeted towards anybody of ethnic diversity or ethnic looking diversity. And then the other one was for everybody else, which kind of meant the typical Caucasian male. So I just can't get over how ridiculous the whole thing seems. If that's not discrimination, what is, right? Creating kind of three different recruitment categories or recruitment groups, right? And you can only imagine from which groups they're going to be selecting people to have their new brave face of the fire department. And so, I guess going into more of a spiritual thought, I've kind of just been listening to I used to listen to music when I worked out or cleaned or whatever, but now I've been listening to mostly Catholic exorcists and just talking about how a lot of this stuff is kind of seeming.
That's a new hobby to
Yeah.
with. Yeah, I heard something about the Catholic are complaining that they are short of exorcists. They need more people to apply for exorcists. I guess that's all they want us to be, exorcists. That's the new industry that will boom.
Yeah, so at any rate, just talking about how a lot of this, even how we're focusing so much on pronouns and stuff, and people that are dealing with, I don't know, I guess sexual identity crisis or whatever you want to call it, talking about how their partners in their heads are telling them that they should get these operations and that they don't want to do it and stuff. And it just kind of, I don't know. I think there's definitely a spiritual element that we're dealing with in all of this, and
absolutely
to kind of create. I guess it's really attack on God's creation, on people the way they're created in God's image and likeness, male and female. So I guess the attack on the male image is also the attack on the female image because they're complementary to each other.
That's
Like
right.
recently in Calgary, we had another thing in Calgary, in our illustrious city. At my local swimming pool, at the Canyon Meadow Swimming Pool. I don't know if you've heard about it, Joe. There was
The male transvestite coming into the the girls.
that's right. And there was a dad and mom, I believe, reported it and complained about it. And I think there was 11, 12-year-old girls in there changing, and they were, shocked and horrified, right, to see this guy walking around with his member exposed. And whatever he wants to identify as, he's still a biological male until he whacks that thing off. But at any rate, it's how far are we going here, right? Every day you hear something weirder and weirder going on, and it's not that your average neighbor is weirder, right? It's just that I think they're more afraid, right? And maybe that's the real thing that's going on here. We're becoming afraid. We don't maybe trust in God like we should, and I think we just all have to be maybe ready to sacrifice and suffer for our beloved freedom in this country, which is what me and Mike and the other guys are doing, right? We're putting up our own money, our own time. A lot of us sacrifice their jobs, and we're hoping to inspire other people to do the same thing.
I think you guys need a lot of support of the community. Did you want to add to that something to that, Mike?
No, just along what Steve was talking about too. It's like he mentioned Jordan Peterson a while ago, and I know I was listening to him. He's like, I feel that's why they're specifically going after kids when they're the most vulnerable, because they have to. Because once you become an adult, you're pretty secure in who you are. You're you know what you want to be, you know who you are. But when you start getting into kids that are like 7, 8 years old, this is when they're vulnerable. And anyways, he was saying that a lot of kids go through a stage in their life where you're unsure, you don't know what's going on with your body, all this stuff, and they're preying on that. But as soon as kids get older and they get out of puberty and they get to adults, 85 to 90% of that is gone, and they know that. So that's why they're attacking. That's why they're going after kids, and that's why they're trying to get at our kids. And I think it's our moral obligation to stand up for these kids because they are the most vulnerable.
In my opinion, the assault against the father figure, the male, head of the nuclear family or extended family structure. I know even back in the early 30s, I think, before the industrial revolutions, North America, Canada, and the United States live in extended family. If you guys are you guys familiar with Yellowstone, the miniseries Yellowstone?
Train station.
The train. I had Dana Metcalf from Newfoundland who brought in the trucks from the east side to the trucker convoy. Dana Metcalf was my guest just an episode ago, and she was saying, "I'm totally Beth Dutton." She was saying, "I'm totally Beth Dutton," but I think the assault on male figures is specifically to go after the kids. If you can eliminate the protective spirit of a father in a family, you emasculate the men, emasculate the dads to be the most. I remember Kevin Johnson was saying that he's highly qualified in his industry, but they would not hire white males in that industry that he was trying to get a job on. And they are so blatant now in many postings where they can put white male need not apply. Some of the postings now, just turn it around. If you say, black male or black female need not apply in today's society, that's like, that's a crime. But somehow they allow white males need not apply in some of the postings. That's happening in Western society. Like you guys said, this is a deterioration or the attempt to destabilize our society. But how can we? I know that Jordan Peterson's popularity is because of how he tried to encourage and build up the young men. Recently, because of Amazing Polly's podcast, it came to light that Jordan Peterson is also trying to create his own WEF, his own consortium to compete with the WEF. However, when you become part of it, it essentially ends up being the same. Give up on your freedoms to be part of his consortium. So I think the heroes of our society are local men and women in our neighborhoods, like you guys, not this big name, personalities that I think that we always are being led to our demise by following big name personalities such as Pierre Polyev, who we thought will be our hero, but now we are finding out that his wife was the CEO of one of the health organizations who were pushing for the testing and the mandates. And there were I actually have a video clip. I didn't prepare it tonight, but I have a video clip when I interviewed Pierre Polyev in 2020. And when I asked him about mandatory vaccines, were not available then. And he was like a champion saying, Joe, you can count on us that the Conservative Party will fight any mandatory vaccines. But then he was caught saying himself, we were considering if we should push the government for a mandatory vaccine. So I don't think these big name brands we should be looking up to big name brands, as we're still looking for heroes. We're still looking for messiahs, but the Lord has given us a messiah, and that's the Lord Jesus Christ. And if we are functioning in the Holy Spirit, we will know that our real heroes are the men and women, boots on the ground, or ordinary Jane and Joe Canadians who's actually fighting for these local atrocities in our local level. How do we wake up society to this fact?
Oof. It's a tough one. I think what it is kind of like, to me, it seems like it's kind of really maybe a case by case, individual conversation by individual conversation. Like, we can keep putting out the information, but I think it's really, you're hoping that you standing up and pushing back will inspire somebody to do the same. And it often does, because I think courage is contagious. And I think that's why the trucker convoy had such an impact, that so many people were, like in the United States, we have family that lives there. And for that week in the United States, every American news channel was covering what was going on in Canada, right? There, typically we're like kind of like we're sort of on the back burner of their conscious. But for that week, we were front and center on every news channel in the United States, because the courage that those people took, and guys like Pastor Art, who did, inspire the guys at Coots to stand up at the Coots crossing peacefully in prayer, right, and is being persecuted for it. It's people in moments like that we all have to be willing to take, I think, and not enough of us are doing it. And we're hoping to inspire others to do the same.
I would like to go to the comments. If you guys can, I'm gonna put my reading glasses on, because I would like us to have a segment where we give a lot of opportunity to our live viewers to interact with our guests. Carrie Ann, who's instrumental bringing you guys to the Freedom Fighter Radio. Carrie Ann, thank you for bringing the firefighters to our show today. Why is Danielle Smith silent? Okay, tip. Is the only party pushing back against the library drag shows and standing for protection of children. Why is Danielle Smith silent on this issue, playing it safe, riding the fence? So maybe Steve, have you heard Danielle Smith addressing any of these so far? Or?
No, I haven't. I think there is one positive thing, is the talk of a provincial police force. There's provincial cops, sheriffs in the city now. I would like to see, obviously, the ability for the election to be audited. I would like to see the premier, that being one of the first issues, the municipal elections. I would encourage her to do that. Why she's being quiet now, I'm not sure. To me, it seems like it would only inspire people like us to come out and vote for her if she was to take a strong issue on it.
Yeah, and that's my problem with Jordan Peterson too. When if you go back and try to find voices like him would have tipped the balance if he spoke out during the heavy lockdowns, churches being fenced off, pastors being arrested, people being forced mask on their face, people being arrested or pummeled by police for not wearing their mask. Like people like Pierre Polyev and Jordan Peterson, if they spoke out during that very important moment, that would have tipped the balance, but they stayed silent. Folks, I don't see a lot of questions. I usually look for question marks, so we'll give the audience members another chance here to bring in the questions before we are an hour 25 into this podcast. So for the last 5 minutes, folks, we'd like our audience member to interact with our special guest. Firefighters for Truth is our special guest tonight. Mike, what else do you want to talk about?
Wow, anything, Joe? No.
Anything.
No, I actually just going back. I know Steve answered the question and stuff, but it's just I find it a real shame that not only Daniel Smith, but not a single politician in this province is standing up against any of this. Like, not conservative, liberal, NDP, nobody that's in there right now as an MLA is standing up against. I don't hear anybody saying anything about anything. So I don't know if everybody's afraid to, because I know when the mandates happened, there was one MLA that stood up, and he ended up, it was over the masking. He was a conservative member, and he ended up getting booted out because he stood up. So when Danielle Smith came back in, and when she won, she actually brought him back in, and he actually was given a position of power above just being an MLA. And now you hear, now you hear nothing from him. It's crickets. You try to get a hold of him, nothing.
So she got reinstated, but she became quiet.
This guy got reinstated, but now that he's reinstated, he's quiet, and you try to reach out to him, and people have, he doesn't. He says his response is, "What can one man do?" And I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be seen as a far right extremist.
You know
what?
How
do you deal with that?
But what reminds me of that is when they went to Pastor Art and offered him, we'll give you a position.
Yeah, exactly. They did.
Yeah. These are the sort of like, this is the deal. We'll give you a secured position, but you got to quiet on this, quiet on that, and you're not going to do this anymore. And I don't like how a lot of our even within the freedom community who got arrested, right? They were vocal, they got arrested, they're given a plea deal, some sort of deal, and then they come out of that arrest saying, "Oh, Joe, sorry, I cannot talk about this anymore." Why would you agree to that? In my opinion, why would you agree to that? There's another question here about Disney, and I know this is the alpha male room here talking about Disney. Let's talk about Disney for a little bit. There's a question here. Disney, where is that question? Sorry, give me a second here. Catholic Church said, "Give me your children." Oh, what is this? Marie Valdez. No, that's not the Disney question. Sorry, folks. I think I quite lost. Okay. I quit watching Disney at 12 years in 1969 because it was minus the mother, Bud from the unit. Mom's reason was Disney was German, and that's how they were. Okay, sorry. I thought she was asking a question here. But yeah, I think what the audience members were alluding to is they are really targeting our children in many of these Disney and children's show. And we know in the United States, when they raided the neighboring towns where Disney is, in Disney World, is that in Florida, that they arrested many Disney employees, and they even arrested a judge who was also involved in child porn. And it seems to be out in the open now. They really are targeting our children. Please wake up the men, folks. How are we gonna wake up the men who are, organically usually the one who is protective of our children?
Yeah, I think even Joe, just thinking about it, like, not to get off topic, but we're talking about Disney and stuff and all these major corporations and how they're entrenched in this the global elite movement. often many of these people are involved in things like the World Economic Forum. But you see now how we used to believe that satanic activity and stuff used to just kind of be a conspiracy theorist. But with stuff coming out, we're starting to see like you have former FBI heads talking about human trafficking on mass levels, like things that we never thought. I'm shocked at the numbers that have recently been reported. Something of 500,000 to 800,000 kids that come who aren't registered at birth without birth certificates that are trafficked for whatever reason, whether it be satanic sacrifice, torture, or even for labor or for organs and things like that. And you got to imagine if it's going on in the United States, Canada's probably, I don't know, what are we, 9% of their population? Statistically, we're probably looking at something like 50 to 100,000 in this country. And I don't know, it's kind of like one of those things, like it's kind of like COVID. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then you kind of, I don't know, you don't look at everything around you the same way. But it's out there. And I think a lot of this stuff, this evil in our culture is being more overt now. And it's probably because we're headed to some kind of precipice, not to be overly spiritual about it, but just, I guess, consciously aware of what's going on.
Well, one of my brands here, Freedom Fighter Radio, I do not shy away, or I am not ashamed of telling everybody that I'm a Christian freedom podcaster, and because I also have a Christian podcast, and I think it's probably just me and Laurelyn Tyler Thompson from British Columbia who are out in the open fighting for our freedom, but at the same time, we are not ashamed of stating our faith on this podcast. And I really believe that this is not just a political war, not just a military covert war. This is a spiritual war. I really think that this is a spiritual war. That's why I think that's the reason they're bringing in all these aliens. Most likely, these are demons that are going to hijack the pop culture, alien Hollywood, form, so that they can come and and say, "We are your friends. We are your friends. Welcome us into your society." I don't see a lot of questions from the comment section, folks, because maybe that's because of the shadow banning, and also Crosspost is not working tonight. But we are going to get more questions here in the post for sure. So in the last 2 minutes here, let's give everybody closing statements, and then we'll say goodbye. We'll start with you, Steve.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Joe, for doing what you do, and for everybody else who's fighting the good fight. It is like I'm doing this for my kids and their future and all of our children and stuff. And I think if you guys can find it to support us, we greatly appreciate it. It's FireFighters4Truth.com.
Let me put that up.
Sure.
FireFighters4Truth.com. Okay.
Yeah, the legal battles are important, and we're happy to spearhead it. Unfortunately, with just the 17 of us on our resources, it's going to be nearly impossible to take this thing to the Supreme Court. It's going to have to be challenged and overturned eventually to protect everybody's, particularly workers' rights under the Charter, under the bill and the Criminal Code of Canada, right? So it's a very important case. I hope people start paying attention to it. We're still waiting for our call to court for the jurisdiction appeal, but unless we get the support we need, we're not going to be heard before a judge.
Oh man, folks, we really need to help Firefighters for Truth. If nobody else will come to stand up with our firefighters. I forgot the last question I want to ask you, and then I will go to Mike for a closing statement. How many forest fires in a year does Alberta experience on a given year?
How many?
Yeah. Do you have yearly forest fires?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're municipal firefighters, so we do deal with the wildland and the dryness conditions, particularly in the spring and fall. For years I was on the bush buggy trucks as well as the aerials, which bush buggy trucks are based for firefighting and whatnot. And so the drier the season, you can guarantee there'll be more shrub forest fires. However, it changes from year to year depending on the weather.
Because Alberta is north of Montana, right? Montana is our favorite Dutton family Yellowstone miniseries where that is being filmed. And it's an eye opener for me. I know it's fictitious, but the creator and writer Taylor Sheridan, I think he's a genius exposing realities of life, how we experience it. But how many firefighters quit because of mandatory vaccine? Do you know?
It's hard to say with the guys that were retiring. A lot of guys like retired early and had enough. In our group, out of this 17, there was 7 of us who retired. We're forced to resign, essentially. So now that the mandates have come and gone, and people are starting to realize that these shots were never what was told, and they were never safe and effective, but dangerous and illegal. And everybody's asking why, right? And people are now hurt. I know there's a lot of firefighters that are sick and dealing with issues. Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely. But of course, they're the ones that have come forward have already come forward. I think the ones that stayed silent did so for their reasons, and I'm imagining now they wish they would have come with us. And I mean, I think I would just want to encourage them all to take note of how they've been affected by it, to reach out for support, because we're here to listen and help, right? And if they can support us too, right, that'd be huge. I mean, we're only going to beat these people by coming together, and there are people that should be held accountable.
And I think those who stand up for their own personal rights, you can count on people like you guys who stand for your personal rights and your family rights, to stand up for the rights of every member of society. Those who gave in and gave up on their rights, how can we count on them to fight for rights and freedom in this country? And the great resignation, I know that also affected the firefighters all across the board, not only in Canada, but the United States. There's great resignations among the doctors, great resignations among the nurses, the military, and every essential sectors of our society. How are we going to replace them? I think the United Nations want to replace them with immigrants who are, who are not vetted, so that because these unvetted immigrants will be yes men and women to the global elites, whatever they're asked to do. That's the way they replace freedom loving and patriotic Canadians of our society. Last words, closing statement, Mike.
Okay, closing statement. You know what? It's taken us a long time to get to where we are. It's taken decades, and this isn't going to be turned around in a day, a week, a month. We got to just keep standing strong. Let your voice be heard. That's why do you think they try to silence us all the time? Because they don't want our voices to be heard. And there's more people watching you and listening to you than you probably realize. So when you stand up and show your strength, it definitely encourages other people to do so. And that's how we're going to win this.
Praise the Lord. And again, the website is FireFighters4Truth. You take, how do they give to Firefighters for Truth? Is this Interact or Venmo or some sort of fundraising platform?
Yeah, it's a Give Send Go account. Give Send Go. Yeah, FireFighters4Truth.com.
Praise the Lord. So, folks, our firefighters are essential services, just like our truckers, our police, our nurses, our doctors. They are essential frontliners. We gotta support our firefighters. If there's a bushfire or even a forest fire, who are we gonna run to help us put the fire out? And if there's a great resignation already, are we gonna count on those who easily succumb to pressure? If firefighters those who easily succumb to pressure to roll up their sleeve and take in a poisonous shot, maybe they are faced with fire and they will run away from the fire instead of putting it out in your behalf. We gotta, support our brave, courageous firefighters who only not stand against fires, but stand with the truth. Our awesome guest tonight was Mike Anjusco and Steve the Ba. of Firefighters for Truth, and the website is FireFighters4Truth.com. Don't go away, folks. I'll be right back after I say goodbye to our brothers. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mike. I hope to see you back again soon. And if you need help with, if you want to do a podcast, just, you know my number. I'll help you set up one. God bless you both, and thank you for guesting on Freedom Fighter Radio.
Thanks very much, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, folks, don't go away. We'll be right back after these short messages.
Just because it's a seller's market, it does not mean that it's not a good time for you, the buyer, to get into your dream home. The seller's market presents a unique opportunity not available during the buyer's market. Find out for yourself. Get the professional advice of an experienced, honest, Christian freedom-loving real estate professional. Call my friend, our sister in the fight for freedom, Madam Cheryl Severance of Century 21 at 905-646-2121, or check out her website at cheryl-severance-c21.ca.
Fund the truth. Fund the unacceptable fringe views of the Freedom Fighter radio broadcast. Go to patreon.com/OJTV Canada and also donate $3 per month and help us keep going and pushing back against the lies, the hate, and the fear-mongering of the legacy media. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada. Your $3 per month will help us set fire on the lies of the tyrants, the technocrats, and the internationalist social engineers. Patreon.com/OJTV Canada.
Did you hear about the children's cough syrup shelf? They are mostly empty in the drugstores. Are you concerned? Do you feel the need to stockpile? As the world heads towards uncertainty, with every nation meeting its own challenges, Larks Medical are staged and ready to respond. Go to larksmedical.com. Provide them with your name, phone number, and email, and Larks will respond at their earliest possible availability to find solutions and ensure ample supply for your needs. Or email them directly at info@larksmedical.com. That's info@larksmedical.com.
I'm Pastor Arthur from Calgary, the leader of the Independence Party of Alberta. You are listening to the Freedom Fighter Radio Worldwide podcast, only here on the Ordinary Joe Show.
Immediately out! Immediately go and don't come back!
So, folks, that was Freedom Fighter Radio on a Tuesday night. On Thursday, we are going to have Logan Murphy, one of the photographers of the Freedom Movement. He was also at the January 6th event in the United States. He'll talk to us this Friday. On Sunday, we are going to welcome back Mike Anjosco of Firefighters for Truth to join our round table that's happening this Sunday, March 19th. And Steve Dabaugh will also join us on the next round table on April 2nd. And I would like to ask everybody on the Freedom community, if you know business owners who would like to advertise on the show to support and help fund the truth, you are welcome to support us. Please go to www.ojtv.ca. You can see that how to contact me on the ticker tape on the bottom. You can see on the bottom. My email address will also pop up on the bottom. We need more advertisers to fill up our advertising spots so that we can fund this show and also fund the traction, the campaigns to push this message far and wide. Thank you to all who join us on Rumble, Odyssey, on Twitter. We're not building YouTube that much, but we are welcoming new members from Friendivoo, from BitChute. Odyssey is live. BitChute is not live. Gab TV, and all of our other Twitter type platforms such as Truth Social, Parler, Getter, and Gab. So thank you, folks, for joining in. Please share, and join us again on Thursday. I'm your host, Ordinary Joe. This has been Freedom Fighter Radio. It's 7:18 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My brothers are waiting for me in the backstage. So good night, folks, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you for joining Freedom Fighter Radio. If I can find my outro. God bless you all. We'll see you again on Thursday. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Freedom Fighter Radio. What is up? Whoa!
Shout out to Freedom Fighter Radio. And Joe, you're doing great work, brother, and I love it. All right? Always.
Make sure you listen to the Freedom Fighter Radio on Ordinary